Hello, everybody. I'm Rocco, your girl, and today we'll be discussing the term meta. Now, that literally means an acronym for most effective tactics available. But what does this actually mean? It could mean the best or most winning tournament army available, or some people think it's just something that Game Workshops comes up with. And some people feel like it's the general army list or build that dominates for any given reason. But I've found that we tend to be asking an incomplete question. Instead of just asking what the meta is, we should be asking where the meta is and how you can play in that meta. Now, to answer these two very important supplemental questions, I'm going to be kicking it over to Rocco, ya boy.
Thank you, Rocco, you girl. So let's talk about where do we find this meta, right? Because everyone's throwing it around everywhere. And so your meta is your local play group, all right? You don't really have to worry about these big tournaments and all this crazy stuff. It is the people you actually regularly play with is your meta. So, what could that be? That's your local store that you play at, the people that hang around in your basement on the weekends, before your partner kicks them out. It could be these big nationwide tournaments like LVO, the Las Vegas Open. It could be an international scene like you get with Tabletop Simulator, or if you're rich and fly around all the different countries to go and kick the snot out of people from Australia to New Zealand. Who knows? But wherever you play, that is your local scene for all intents and purposes of this video. So this is why when you get into a new group for the first time, it could be difficult or rewarding or both. If you're bringing something that is off meta to where you're playing. This could be you bring that new army and you are the new thing to beat, or you get slaughtered and you go 0-5 and you're like, oh man, y'all play like this? Y'all have these here? I don't have any of these back where I was playing. And then you go on from there. So these things are pretty standard, right? It's the armies that are there are what you play against. Now, Games Workshop sometimes will accidentally create monsters. Xeraphon, Zin's Chain Shows. I was supposed to cough on that last one. Um, and they will eventually be nerfed and taken care of so that a new thing like say Lumineth Realm, oh, I didn't cough for that one. Whatever the new thing that's scaring the people on the internet, that'll pop up and everyone's like, oh my god. Then you play a game and you beat the person, you're like, oh, and you move on. And so these metas shift because we're going to talk about that right now with how do you effectively play in what your meta is. So let's say your local friends that y'all play, you got Smitty with Night Haunt, you got Sasha with Sylvaneth, you've got someone playing Cities, their cousin plays Ogres, and we got the one oddball Lumineth Rumlords player who really likes the new Kangaroos, right? Nothing but Kangaroos. It's a little weird, but that's okay. It's not Techless and the Bajillion Archers. So in this group, Sasha with her Sylvaneth, that is the dominant army, right? Because it's a little weird, but it turns out Sasha's just a really good player. So she can go and stop the people trying to bring these newer armies like the LRL. And then all of a sudden you're in a situation where, hey man, Sylvaneth, that's our dominant local meta. That's our driver of our meta and what we need to beat in order to do good at events or to do good in our own play group. So what happens is while we're focusing on this meta, it's like how do we beat it? What do we do? And then your Sylvaneth meta is so different than all the other stuff because if Sasha took that Sylvaneth army out to a bigger tournament scene or a bigger group, it might not do so well. Or given the right updates, hopefully with a Broken Realms book, things end up going all right. So now we've found our local meta. We've gone out and said it. We've already said how it's being played. Now, where do we get that part about being effective in it? So when you're building lists, and go see our list building episode where I go through a bunch of the general rules of thumb that I have. Uh, but when you're building lists to go into a new meta, it's do you go after these top performing armies, or do you build a more general, all-rounded list? You're like, it's good, but I don't know what I'm gonna see, so I want to be good in a bunch of different areas for different battle plans. Because if I take an army that's meant to kill Sylvaneth, and I don't run into any Sylvaneth, and say I run into a bunch of Caradron Overlords and Tzeentch and Seraphon, I'm probably gonna have a bad time. And so we can go into an example on this. So I came from I cut my teeth in the lovely state of Delaware, where there's not a lot of people. I played in a couple different metas, did really good, for all things considered. Played against people from like Maryland, Delaware, a little bit in Pennsylvania. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to this tournament and this new gaming group to me, new to me, the Basement War Gamers, love them, outside of Philly. And I played some pickup games, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing good still. I'm gonna go and take my. It was actually a Stormcast army. It had some shooting. It wasn't the one drop thing. I think it was like 12 drops. I had a weird list that was off meta, but it was primarily a well-rounded list where it had a mix of close combat, magic, mortal wounds, and shooting. I'm like, cool. And then I went to this tournament, right? And the Ossiarch Bone Reaper book had just dropped, and Petrifex Elite was running rampant. For those not knowing, it's been nerfed since, again, for why meta shift. But at the time, it was, everybody got +1 to their save just for existing. And everyone could get rend for spending one of the resource points. It was a problem. And at this tournament, there were 30 people about, and 8 of them brought pretty much the exact same army of Bone Reapers. I caught 2 of them. I beat 1 of them. And then my third game, it was a Bone Reaper player who he got lucky with his catapult shot me to death. And then I'm like, okay, he shot all my shooting. That's rough, because I only had the 1 unit for it. And then my close combat stuff just didn't matter. And my second game actually caught a Cities player, and that was just a cluster of a game. And then we got to the other OBR player. This one was actually using the Gash instead of the catapults, and I beat it. I went 1-2. I don't 3-0 every tournament, and I have a weird reputation now of just being the guy to beat and stuff. No matter what I bring, it's going to be a good game. But I do lose. It happens, and it's okay. This is a dice game. You could be a good player and roll bad, and then things happen. Or you do what I did, which was I brought a list that was good where I was, came into this new meta, and I'm like, all right, my butt is sore from the paddling I got. Now, what do I do? Do I try something new? Do I keep the thing going? I'm like, oh, I'm never going to get, a third of the field as OBR. I'll probably just get them once and be whatever. And so what I did was I dropped a unit of evocators from my list to get 2 ballistas. In my army, I swapped a hero around to get a Lord Ordinator. Long story short, your boy went very heavy into shooting, which wasn't necessarily that popular at the time, but thanks to the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, all that -2 rend flying at you, you can't reroll saves in the shooting phase, my friend. And then I never had another problem. And this goes into how do we put all this in practice? Because that's a great story, Rocco. These are some great tips, but like, how do we actually use this? So this comes down to 3 tips. All right. Number 1, we embrace what the meta is. At the time of this video, it is March 4th, the year 2020. We're in a Magic Dom and a shooting meta here. Oh, sorry, April. My gut. Time flies when you're stuck in COVID, huh? April, January, February, March. Yeah, April. So, where we are right now, this actually was good for March too, but hey. Um, it is a magic domination in shooting meta, right? It is like Techless and Croak and the Salamanders and a bajillion skanks, and anyone who has a gun will shoot you down in the streets here in this meta. Caradron Overlords are big. Flamers are big from Tzeentch. You get the idea. And if you have models that can play in that space in your army, do it. Just do it. Embrace the meta. This is tournament stuff we're talking about here. This isn't little Timmy, Johnny, and Stewie are out playing the games, and then Sasha comes in and beats the hell out of them with her overpowered Sylvaneth thing from before. This isn't the for fun stuff. This is you're going for placing. You're going for your 3 games. You don't want to have the 1 and 2 result. If your army can play in this meta and carve out a spot in it for themselves, do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Second way to go here, counter the meta. So this is where these metas grow and new things come in and out of flavor here. So the example that comes to my mind, there's a Tzeentch Archeon list. Big bad, 800 some odd points, 3-headed monster he rides. The guy's you either love him or you hate him. But he has a rule where you have to reroll 6s to hit against him. And a lot of these armies have special abilities on their shooting that go off when you get a 6 to hit. Or it's like our humble friend the Skink, you remember that video, where they only hit on 5s and 6s. So to re-roll half of their successes just cuts down all of their production. And then if you're dealing with, say, a Lord Croak, and you have this Archeon, you know what? In Tzeentch, you can use things called Destiny Dice, where you got a pool of them, and you can use these dice to supplement your own dice roll. So Archeon has an ability where if he rolls 2 6s to wound with his sword against an enemy hero, they're instantly dead. So that big, scary mage that's just beating the snot out of you, just gone. Verp him into the sword, and you're good. They can't shoot you. They can't do magic. Boom, meta countered. And you're feeling good. And then maybe you do this third option. Ignore it. Do your own thing. What do you care? You know what? Shooting's the meta, but hey, you know what? My Deepkin, they can kind of count it. They got the movement to go around the shooting and to do different things. But I don't have wizards to play in this space. Heck, Khorne can play in this space because they have all this wizard denial to counter stuff with the Hexgorger Skulls as a shout. I can't do that, man. It's what am I gonna bring? The aspect of the storm right now that could reroll some casting? Great. Dude's got +5 to unbind me. I rolled my 5 into a 6. He rolls 2 dice. He's at least rolling a 7. So don't bring magic. Go heavy on other stuff. Go into your fast cav. Go into your combat stuff. If like one thing that I'm known for personally is my Living Cities army, where no one expects it because it's not Hollowheart, it's not Hammerhall, it's not Tempest Eye, these flashier cities. But it gives me the movement tools. It gives me the ability to hide my stuff in reserve, so it can't get shot off or magicked off the board. It lets me play in a different space than what these other things are playing in. So I can come in and do my style of game. And then if you keep doing this kind of a thing, eventually you're going to go and make the meta change to suit you. Because people are going to be like, oh man, this person's doing their own thing and they're kicking our butts. We got to do something here. We got to find out a way to counter them. Or, you know what? I like what they're doing. Let's get on that bandwagon. Can't beat it, join it. And now here's another disclaimer to all this. All the metas are different. Yours to mine to whatever. The TTS meta is its own weird thing because no one has to buy the models to play. And also, when this concept of metas is coming out, when a new army drops, it takes time to collect all the models and paint them. So you're not going to see some of this filth that people complain about online in chat rooms right away. And not everyone's going to be able to afford the filth right away either, if they even want to play that way. So, breathe. You're okay. Also, not all factions can follow the 3 tips of embrace the meta, counter the meta, and ignore the meta. Sometimes they just don't have the model range for it. They don't have the rules for it. And that's okay, because that's where we get to this tier list of what are good factions, what are bad factions, and that changes all the time. Something like Stormcast that has a bajillion options all of a sudden isn't that good unless they're embracing this one particular build. They can't really counter it because there's too much magic flying around. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay to just do your own thing because you got a bajillion options and no one's going to plan for them all. And with that, thank you for watching. Thank you for coming to class today. And as your professor, it is my pleasure to say, class dismissed.
Hi, hello everyone. I just want to add my own little epilogue here and say that it is April 2021, not March or April of 2020. My husband lost his mind just a tiny, tiny bit. All right. Goodbye, everybody.